Hi, my name's Mark Brown, and this is my journey deeper into God's Word. And today I've been challenged by Matthew 11, beginning at verse 28. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Well, over these past 6 nights, it's been extraordinary, and some people may think that traveling is glamorous. Well, as someone who does a lot of flying, let me assure you that it's not as glamorous as you might think. Last night was the first semi-normal night of sleep I had. The 5 nights prior to that, I had 2 nights without any sleep. One of them was on a plane, and then the next 3 nights I just got a few hours. And on the back of that, I had to perform because I've been traveling. I'm here in New York for work for my company, Global Scope Media. So last night was the first real night I had. And I was able today, as I have a day off today, to kind of restore myself, to get some of my energy back after what has been a pretty long period of feeling tired. And one of the things that I did that I wanted to share with you here in New York is I'm right next to Central Park here. And I went into Central Park for a walk. It's a glorious day in New York today. Beautiful sunshine, it's warm. And I just walked through Central Park, stopped, sat on the grass, let the sun just hit my face, and I could feel myself physically being restored. Now, what happened in that encounter and experience is I sought rest, so I actively went out and made the decision to go to Central Park. I exercised, so I got out, which is a good thing. And the warm sun. The warm sun was actually really key part of it. So the exercise, the seeking to go to the park, and the warm sun was absolutely incredible. Now, I've also been feeling emotionally weary as well, as stuff is going on in my life. So it's not just physical, but right now there's an emotional weariness that's going on for me. And the same thing applies, the same principles apply, except just I want to give it a spin. The first is, when I'm feeling emotionally weary, this passage has an extraordinary insight for me, and that's why I was so struck by it today. When it talks about, come to me all who are weary and burdened, says Matthew 11, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Well, the first thing is, with Central Park, with the physically being revived, I sought rest. I actually went to the Central Park to do that. In the same way, to be emotionally or mentally rested, I also need to seek rest. I need to actively seek it. Not just allow it to wash over myself and to consume me and almost drown in it, but I need to seek it out. And that is prayer. That is spending time in prayer, crying out to God. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong in me crying out to God. Psalm 40, the psalm is full of extraordinary examples of great people, great Christians who cry. The Bible's full of great Christians who cry out to God in times of desperate need. But Psalm 40, let me just read a little bit. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slummy pit, out of the mud and mire. So it was that sense of patiently waiting. Sometimes it comes quickly, but for me it is a gradual process, a very slow process, but crying out to God is the first thing. Seeking rest is prayer, seeking God. And of course we see that in Matthew 11 when it says in verse 28, Come to me, all who are weary. Actively, I need to go to God. I need to cry out to God, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. The second part of my Central Park experience was exercise. So walking, I was walking around the park. In the same way, in how I feel emotionally drained, mentally spent perhaps, I also need to exercise as well, to counter that, to give myself relief, to feel the healing. And how that practically works is I make active changes in my life. I don't just sit back and accept it. I say, what do I need to do to alleviate this emotional strain? What has to happen to make this? What can I do? What's my part of the bargain? What do I need to do to make this happen? To relieve the emotional strain. Now, the obvious one, the decision I can make is to get into this, to get in to God's Word, to actively seek after His teaching and His will. And the second part I want to point out in the reading that I've been looking at and reflecting on is in Matthew 11, is verse 29. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Now this expression, take my yoke upon you, it talks of rabbinic practice. The rabbis, the great teachers, they would choose students, and the students would literally wear something around their neck that identified them as particular to that teacher, to that rabbi. So when you saw them in the street, you knew they were with Rabbi Abraham. They were Rabbi Abraham's students because they had his playing shirt on, the team shirt. And in the same way, Jesus is saying, become my student, Mark. Take my yoke, the team shirt, put it on and wear it and learn from me. Well, how do I learn from Jesus? I have to read. I have to spend time actively exercising my brain, pursuing healing. I can't just sit there. I can't just sit here and expect God to act. God does act, and God will act. But the reading is telling me and challenging me that I also need to act. And the third and final point is the warm sun as I walk through Central Park. Absolutely stunning, beautiful sun. Well, that is being comforted, being healed, receiving the healing and the warmth from God. I need to be active, and now God is active on me. Verse 29b reads, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. This is active in two ways. I act, and God absolutely acts on me. He will give me rest for my soul. So as I felt physically tired and headed to Central Park and made that commitment and exercise and enjoy the sun, in the same way, I need to make a commitment when I'm feeling emotionally drained and mentally spent to pray